The caged star pulsed like a dying heart as its containment field continued to collapse. Jake Morrison stood in the crumbling throne chamber watching 5 godlike beings experience mortality for the first time in millennia. Their perfect faces showed emotions they had forgotten how to feel. "This cannot be happening," Korvax whispered as his crystalline form flickered with unstable energy. "We are eternal. We are divine." "Nothing is eternal," Jake replied as another power relay exploded in the distance. "The universe doesn't care about your claims of divinity." Zephyra's misty form was becoming more solid as the quantum networks that sustained her consciousness failed. "You have doomed us all, human. The star's explosion will destroy everything within 50 light years. Only if we stand here arguing instead of working together," Jake said. "My people are already evacuating the station. Are you going to help, or are you going to die for your pride?" The council members looked at each other with expressions that Jake realized were completely new to them. They had ruled for so long that they had forgotten how to cooperate as equals rather than command as superiors. Ryan Cooper's voice crackled through the failing communication system. "Captain, containment field is down to 30% and dropping fast. We have maybe 20 minutes before total collapse." "How many people are still on the station?" Jake asked. "Over 2,000, Ryan replied. "The awakened humans are helping with evacuation, but there aren't enough ships." Lisa Grant added her report from the Liberty. "Captain, the Council's invasion. Fleet is in chaos. Without command signals from the station, the ships are just floating in space. Some are trying to return to help with evacuation." Jake turned to the council members. "Your ships could save lives. Are you going to use them or watch everyone die?" Valdris was the first to break. His liquid metal form was losing cohesion as the nanotechnology that sustained him failed. I cannot contact my ships. The quantum networks are completely disrupted." "Then use basic radio," Jake suggested. "It's primitive, but it works." The concept of using such simple technology seemed to shock the council members. They had become so dependent on their advanced systems that they had forgotten simpler alternatives existed. Dr. Amanda Ross appeared in the chamber doorway with a group of newly awakened humans. "Captain, the resonance cascade worked better than expected. Every converted human in the galaxy is waking up simultaneously. The Council's entire empire is collapsing." "Impossible," Flux gasped as his shape-shifting abilities failed completely. He was stuck in his natural form, which looked like a mass of living mercury. "Our control was absolute." "Your control was based on technology," Amanda explained. "And technology can be hacked. Every quantum entanglement link you created had the same vulnerability." Gorok, the giant warrior, was leaning against a wall as his enhanced strength began to fail. "Our modifications are powered by the station's energy grid. Without it, we are becoming ordinary." "Welcome to mortality," Jake said without malice. "It's not as bad as you think." Paul Stevens and his team of unconverted colonists arrived with more evacuation reports. "Captain, we've got ships launching from every docking bay. The awakened humans are organizing rescue operations across the entire station." "What about the Council's people?" Jake asked. "The Vorthak, Etherians, and the others?" "Most of them are in shock," Paul replied. "They've never experienced system failures before. They don't know how to function without their enhanced abilities." Jake made a decision that would define the rest of his life. Instead of leaving the council members to face the consequences of their own hubris, he extended his hand to Korvax. "Come on, help us save who we can." Korvax stared at the offered hand as if it were an alien artifact. You would help us? After what we have done to your species? Because of what you've done, Jake replied. Someone has to break the cycle of revenge and hatred. It might as well be us. The star's pulse grew more violent, sending shock waves through the station's structure. In the distance, they could hear the groaning of metal as the massive structure began to tear itself apart. One by one, the council members took Jake's offered assistance. They stumbled through the collapsing station like lost children, their godlike abilities reduced to nothing more than fading memories. In the evacuation bays, an incredible sight was unfolding. Humans who had been enemies moments before worked, side by side with aliens who had enslaved them. Former worshippers helped their former gods reach safety while the station died around them. This is unprecedented, Valdris said as he watched humans helping injured Vorthak reach the ships. No species has ever shown mercy to their conquerors. Maybe that's been the problem, Jake replied as he helped guide an elderly Etherian to a transport. Maybe someone needed to show a different way. Lisa Grant's tactical report came through the dying communication system. Captain, we've got massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Every council species is either celebrating their freedom or preparing for civil war. And the invasion fleet heading for Earth? Dead in space. Without the quantum command network, they're just individual ships with no coordination. Most are already turning back to help with rescue operations in their home systems. The final evacuation ships launched just as the star's containment field reached critical failure. Jake found himself on the Liberty alongside council members who had never imagined they could be reduced to refugees. 15 seconds to Stellar. Collapse, Ryan announced from the bridge. All ships clear of the blast radius. Through the viewports, they watched the caged star finally break free of its 10,000-year prison. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, a flower of nuclear fire that consumed the massive station in seconds. The shock wave would sterilize dozens of empty star systems, but the evacuation had saved everyone who mattered. It is finished, Korvac said quietly as he watched his empire's greatest symbol burn to nothing. 10 millennia of rule ended by a species we considered barely sentient. Your rule ended, Jake corrected. But your existence doesn't have to. The universe is big enough for all of us if we can learn to share it. Zephyra, now appearing as an ordinary humanoid without her misty enhancements, looked at Jake with new understanding. You could have let us die. Your species would have been free and safe. Why did you save us? Because that's what humans do, Jake replied. We adapt, we learn, and we try to build something better than what came before. Dr. Amanda approached with her final medical report. Captain, the quantum entanglement break was permanent. Every enhanced being in the galaxy is now operating on their natural abilities only. The age of the Council is truly over. The weeks that followed the station's destruction saw the galaxy transform in ways no one had predicted. Without the Council's oppressive rule, hundreds of species began to rediscover their own cultures and technologies. Some chose warfare, but most chose cooperation. The former Council members found themselves in a strange position. They were no longer gods, but they still possessed knowledge accumulated over thousands of years. Many species wanted revenge for millennia of oppression, but an equal number wanted to learn from their experience. Jake Morrison found himself appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Reconstruction Council, a democratic body that slowly formed to replace the old empire. The irony was not lost on him that the species once considered primitive had become mediators between ancient civilizations. Captain Helen Carter, her mind finally free after years of artificial devotion, became the leader of the Human Refugee Assistance Program. She worked tirelessly to help former slaves rebuild their lives and societies. Paul Stevens established the Technology Sharing Initiative, which helped newly free species develop sustainable technologies without becoming dependent on outside powers. The former council members scattered across the galaxy. Some went into exile, unable to cope with their reduced circumstances. Others, like Valdris, began teaching their knowledge to younger species. A few, including Korvax, chose to work directly with humans in developing new approaches to interspecies cooperation. 1 year after the station's destruction, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Assembly Station. Representatives from 300 species worked together to build a government based on cooperation rather than domination. "The humans saved us all," Zephyra said as she joined Jake at the viewport. Her appearance was now completely ordinary, but her voice carried a wisdom earned through suffering, not just from the Council, but from ourselves. "We saved ourselves," Jake replied. "Humans just showed one possible path forward." "Your species has a saying," Zephyra continued. "Something about teaching a person to fish?" Jake smiled. "Give someone a fish, and you feed them for a day. Teach them to fish, and you feed them for a lifetime. The Council gave fish to every species we encountered. We kept them dependent on our gifts. But humans taught the galaxy to fish for itself." Through the viewport, they could see ships from dozens of species working together to build new trade, routes, and communication networks. The galaxy was chaotic and sometimes violent, but it was also growing and learning in ways that had been impossible under the Council's static rule. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Zephyra asked. "Destroying the old order instead of trying to reform it?" The next morning, Jake Morrison stood before the Celestial Council in their great throne chamber. The 5 alien beings sat on thrones made of impossible materials that seemed to bend light around them. Hundreds of converted humans knelt in perfect rows behind Jake, their eyes empty of individual thought. Jake had spent the night refining his plan with his crew and the unconverted colonists. Everything depended on his ability to convince the Council that humanity was ready to surrender while his people prepared their desperate gambit. "We have considered your offer," Jake said, allowing his voice to shake slightly. "Humanity cannot hope to match your power. We choose to serve the Celestial Council." Korvax's crystalline form blazed with satisfaction. "A wise choice, Captain Morrison. Your species shows more intelligence than most. However," Jake continued, "I must ask for mercy for my crew and my homeworld. We have acted in ignorance of your divine nature. Surely gods can forgive the mistakes of children." Zephyra's misty form shimmered with pleasure at being called divine. "Your humility is noted, human. We will be merciful to those who serve faithfully." Jake dropped to one knee, fighting every instinct that screamed against the submission. "I pledge humanity's service to the Celestial Council. Use us as you see fit." Behind him, Helen Carter and the other converted humans smiled with approval. They saw Jake's surrender as confirmation of their own choices, but Paul Stevens, hidden among the converted colonists, began the first phase of the plan. While the Council focused on Jake's performance, Paul activated a small device that would slowly corrupt the station's computer systems. The virus that Ryan Cooper had designed would spread through the quantum communication network like a disease. "Rise, Captain Morrison," Valdris commanded. "You will accompany us to observe the launch of our expansion fleet. Your people will witness the glory of serving gods." Jake stood and followed the Council to another massive chamber. Through transparent walls, he could see space filled with Council warships. Each vessel was kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. The sight of so many ships heading toward Earth made his stomach clench with fear. 3,000 vessels carry our divine message to your homeworld, Gorok rumbled. Earth will welcome us as liberators. Jake forced himself to nod approvingly, while his communicator carried his words to his hidden crew. Lisa, you see this? Count the ships and their weapon signatures. Lisa Grant was already moving through the station's computer systems. The virus Paul had released was giving her access to defensive networks that should have been impossible to breach. I count 3,000 ships in the main fleet, Captain, but there are gaps in their defensive formation. In the medical bay, Dr. Amanda Ross was working frantically to reverse the conversion process in key colonists. She had identified the quantum entanglement device that linked human minds to the Council's consciousness. Breaking that link was delicate work that required perfect timing. The quantum field is more fragile than they realize, Amanda whispered into her communicator. If I can create a resonance cascade, it will shatter the entanglement across the entire network. Ryan Cooper was in the station's power distribution center, disguised as a maintenance worker. The virus was already spreading through the system's ancient computer codes. The Council's technology was so old and unchanging that it had no defenses against modern hacking techniques. Captain, the power grid is more vulnerable than we thought, Ryan reported quietly. They've been using the same control protocols for centuries. I can trigger a cascade failure that will destabilize the entire system. Jake continued his performance before the Council, praising their wisdom and power while secretly coordinating the most audacious plan in human history. Great ones. How long until your fleet reaches Earth? 8 of your months, Korvax replied. Sufficient time to prepare your people for their new role in our empire. And what role will that be? Flux shifted into the shape of a human child again. Your species will serve as guides and interpreters. When we encounter new civilizations, humans will explain the benefits of surrender. Your emotional responses are useful for manipulating other species. Jake felt sick at the casual way Flux discussed using humanity as tools for conquest. We are honored to serve in any capacity you choose. The Council members exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of alien thought. They were pleased with humanity's surrender, but also bored by it. Jake realized that they had gone through this same ritual thousands of times with thousands of species. That boredom would be their downfall. Begin the conversion process for the new arrivals, Zephyra commanded. The humans from the Liberty will join their brethren in enlightened service. This was the signal Jake had been waiting for. As the Council prepared to convert his crew, the real plan began. Dr. Amanda activated her resonance device in the medical bay. The quantum field that controlled the converted humans began to fluctuate. Across the station, converted colonists started to blink in confusion as their connection to the Council's consciousness weakened. Ryan triggered the first power relay failure. A cascade of electrical feedback began racing through the station's power grid. The ancient control systems couldn't adapt to the unexpected surge patterns. Lisa activated every weapon system on the Liberty remotely. The small ship's guns were nothing compared to the station's defenses, but they were targeting specific points that Paul Stevens had identified as critical weak spots. Paul himself was leading the other unconverted colonists in a coordinated assault on the station's communication array. They needed to prevent the Council from warning their invasion fleet about what was happening. The first sign of trouble came when the lights in the throne chamber began to flicker. Korvax turned his crystalline head toward Jake with growing suspicion. "What? Is this disturbance human?" Jake dropped his submissive act immediately. "It's called adaptation, something your species forgot how to do." The council members rose from their thrones as alarms began sounding throughout the station. The conversion chambers went offline as Amanda's resonance cascade spread through the quantum network. Hundreds of converted humans suddenly screamed as their individual consciousness returned. "Impossible!" Valdris snarled as his connection to the station's systems began failing. "Our technology is perfect. It cannot be defeated by primitives." "Your technology is ancient," Jake replied as explosions echoed through the station. "You've been using the same systems for so long that you forgot they could fail." Zephyra tried to read Jake's mind but found only static. Ryan's virus had infected even the quantum networks that powered her telepathy. "How are you blocking my thoughts?" "Electromagnetic pulse generators," Jake explained. "Basic human technology that you never bothered to defend against. Korvax gathered energy for an attack, but the power grid fluctuations made it impossible to focus his abilities." "You dare strike at gods?" "You're not gods," Jake said as more systems failed around them. "You're just very old bullies who forgot that younger species can learn new tricks." Gorak lunged forward with his massive strength, but Lisa's targeting. Data guided the Liberty's weapons to precisely the right spots. Explosions rocked the chamber and sent the giant stumbling. Flux tried to shapeshift, but the viral infection in the station's computers was disrupting the programmable matter that made up his body. He flickered between different forms like a broken hologram. Through the chaos, Jake could hear the voices of awakening humans across the station. 3 years of artificial servitude was ending as Amanda's resonance cascade freed their minds. "This is impossible," Valdris repeated as his perfect technology crumbled around him. "Lesser species cannot defeat us. It violates the natural order." "The natural order," Jake said as he backed toward the chamber's exit, "is that stagnant civilizations get replaced by growing ones. You stopped growing a long time ago." The caged star in the power core began to pulse erratically as its containment field destabilized. Ryan's cascade failure was spreading through the entire system. The ancient mechanisms that had held the star prisoner for millennia were finally breaking down. "You will destroy everything!" Korvax screamed as he realized what was happening. "The star will explode. Billions will die." "Only if we can't evacuate in time," Jake replied. "And that depends on whether you're willing to work with the primitives you've been oppressing." For the first time in thousands of years, the Celestial Council faced a choice they had never had to make. They could let their pride destroy them, or they could accept help from beings they considered inferior. The station shuddered as another power relay failed. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see the invasion fleet beginning to break formation as the command signals from the station failed to reach them. "Decide quickly," Jake said as emergency lights bathed the chamber in red. "Even gods can die if they're too stubborn to accept reality." The council members looked at each other with expressions Jake had never seen on their faces before. For the first time in millennia, they were experiencing genuine fear. The caged star pulsed brighter, and everyone in the chamber could feel the growing instability. They had minutes, not hours, before the containment field collapsed completely. Jake keyed his communicator. "All teams, begin evacuation procedures. We're about to find out if gods can learn to be mortal." Helen Carter led Jake and Lisa through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls pulsed with soft light that hurt their eyes if they looked directly at it. Other converted humans moved through the passages with peaceful smiles on their faces. They all wore the same simple robes and had the same empty look in their eyes. "This is the residential section," Helen explained as they walked. "The council provides everything we need: food, shelter, purpose. We never want for anything." Jake noticed that none of the humans were talking to each other. They moved like sleepwalkers through their daily routines. "What do you do here, Helen? What's your purpose?" "We maintain the station and prepare for the expansion," Helen replied. "The Council has chosen humanity to help spread their divine wisdom to new worlds. We will serve as guides for the next species they encounter." Lisa kept her hand near her weapon but tried to look relaxed. "How many humans are on this station?" "All. 417 survivors from the horizon," Helen said proudly, "plus the crews from 12 other human ships that have found their way here over the past 3 years. Jake's blood chilled. 12 other ships meant over 1,000 humans had been captured and converted. Earth had no idea how many of their people were missing. They entered a vast chamber filled with machinery that defied understanding. Crystalline structures grew from the floor and ceiling like living things. Energy flowed between them in patterns that made no sense to human physics. "This is where the Council works their miracles," Helen said with reverence. "They reshape matter itself in this room. They can create anything from nothing." Dr. Amanda's voice came through Jake's hidden communicator. "Captain, I'm picking up your location through the station's systems. The energy readings in that chamber are incredible, but they follow patterns I recognize." Jake coughed to cover his response. "What kind of patterns?" "Biological," Amanda replied. "Whatever they're doing involves living organisms, very complex ones." A human technician approached them. Jake recognized him as Paul Stevens, the Horizon's chief engineer. Unlike Helen, Paul's eyes held a spark of awareness that the others lacked. "Captain Carter," Paul said carefully, "the Council requests your presence in the power core chamber. They wish to show our guests the heart of their divine realm." As they walked, Paul managed to brush against Jake's arm. Something small passed between them. Jake palmed the object without looking at it. It felt like a data chip. The power core chamber was a sphere 5 kilometers across. In the center, a captured star burned in a cage of impossible forces. Conduits of pure energy flowed from the star to every part of the station. The sight was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Behold, the source of our power," came Valdris's voice from everywhere at once. "We have harnessed a star itself to fuel our works." Jake stared at the caged star and felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "How long has it been imprisoned?" "Time has no meaning for gods," Korvax's voice replied. "The star serves its purpose as all things must." Lisa was studying the energy conduits with professional interest. "Captain, those power distribution patterns are inefficient. They're losing enormous amounts of energy through heat dispersion." Helen shot Lisa a sharp look. "The Council's designs are perfect. How dare you suggest otherwise?" But Jake noticed that Paul Stevens was nodding slightly. The engineer had seen the same flaws that Lisa spotted. Ryan Cooper's voice crackled through the communicator. "Captain, I've been analyzing the station's defensive systems. They're incredibly powerful, but they're also incredibly old. The computer codes haven't been updated in centuries." "That's impossible," Lisa whispered back. "No, system can run that long without maintenance. Unless," Amanda's voice added, "they've been using the same technology for so long that they've forgotten how to improve it." They were led to quarters where they could rest before giving their answer to the council. The rooms were luxurious, but Jake noticed there were no locks on the doors and no way to block the council's surveillance. Once they were alone, Jake examined the data chip Paul had given him. It contained detailed technical scans of the station's systems and a short message. Not all of us are converted. Meet me in Section 7 at 0300 hours. Come alone. That night, Jake made his way through the station's corridors to Section 7. He found Paul Stevens waiting in a maintenance shaft, along with 5 other humans who still had awareness in their eyes. "We've been fighting the conversion process," Paul explained quietly. "The Council uses a combination of drugs, neural programming, and something else. Something that changes how the brain works on a chemical level." "How many of you are there?" Jake asked. 43 out of over 1,000, Paul replied grimly. "The rest are lost. But we've learned things. Important things." One of the other humans, a woman named Carol Webb, leaned forward. "The Council isn't what they claim to be. Their powers aren't magic. They're technology. Very advanced technology, but still technology." Paul activated a small scanner. "The Vorthak have symbiotic organisms in their bodies that convert matter to energy. The Etherians use quantum-entangled implants for their telepathy. The Nexari control programmable nanomachines. The Morphic Collective has smart matter integrated into their cellular structure. The Titanborn are genetically engineered for strength and longevity." "If it's just technology, why can't anyone fight them?" Jake asked. "Because they've been using the same technology for thousands of years," Carol explained. "They perfected it long ago and stopped innovating. Their systems are incredibly powerful, but they're also predictable." Paul showed Jake detailed scans on his scanner. "Look at their power distribution network. It's a masterpiece of engineering, but it's completely static. Every relay station is identical. Every power conduit follows the same pattern. If you could cause a cascade failure in one section, it would spread throughout the entire system. The Council's greatest weakness is psychological," another human added. "They really believe they're gods. They can't imagine being defeated by inferior beings. They don't adapt to new threats because they don't believe new threats can exist." Jake studied the technical data. "What about their invasion fleet?" "Already launched," Paul said grimly. 3,000 ships heading toward human space. They'll arrive in Earth's system in 8 months. The Council is so confident that they've left the station with minimal defenses." "There's something else," Carol said. "The star in the power core is dying. The Council has been draining it for so long that it's becoming unstable. If the containment field fails, the explosion will destroy everything within 50 light years." Jake felt pieces of a plan beginning to form in his mind. "Can you access the station's communication systems?" "Limited access," Paul replied. "Why?" "We need to warn Earth. But more importantly, we need to make the Council think we're surrendering while we prepare a surprise they'll never see coming." Amanda's voice came through his communicator. "Captain, I've made a breakthrough. I know how the conversion process works, and I think I can reverse it." "How?" "It's not just drugs and neural programming. The Council is using a form of quantum entanglement to link human brains to their own consciousness. That's why the converted humans all act the same way. They're partially sharing the Council's thoughts." "Can you break the link?" "I think so, but I'll need time and access to the medical bay where they perform the conversions." Jake looked at the small group of unconverted humans. "We have less than 8 hours before I have to give the Council our answer. Here's what we're going to do." He outlined his plan quickly. It was desperate and dangerous, but it was also completely unpredictable. The Council would never expect humans to try something so insane. You're talking about destroying this entire station, Paul said when Jake finished. Thousands of beings will die. Billions will die if we don't stop them, Jake replied. Earth has no defense against their invasion fleet. This is humanity's only chance. Carol looked at the others. We've been waiting 3 years for an opportunity like this. I'm in. One by one, the other humans agreed. They had seen what the Council did to species that resisted. They knew what would happen to Earth if the invasion succeeded. Remember, Jake said as they prepared to separate. The Council thinks they know everything about human behavior. They've studied thousands of species over thousands of years, but they've never encountered anything like human creativity and stubbornness. As Jake made his way back to his quarters, he activated his communicator. Ryan, Amanda, Lisa, tomorrow morning we surrender to the Council, and then we show them what humans are really capable of. Amanda's voice came back immediately. Captain, I've been analyzing the biological data from the converted humans. There's something you need to know about their conversion process. What is it? It's not permanent. The quantum entanglement can be broken, but when it breaks, it breaks. Everywhere at once. If we can disrupt their control system, every converted human in the galaxy will wake up simultaneously. Jake smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. Amanda, you might have just given us the key to winning this war. Outside his window, the caged star continued to burn in its prison of force fields. Jake wondered if the star knew it was about to be free, even if that freedom meant death. The crystal being's light grew brighter when Jake and Lisa remained standing. The other council members moved closer, their alien forms casting strange shadows in the docking bay. Jake felt pressure building in his mind as if something was trying to push its way inside his thoughts. I am Korvax of the Vorthak, the crystal being said. This is Zephyra of the Etherians, Valdris of the Nexari, Flux of the Morphic Collective, and Gorok of the Titanborn. We have ruled this galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. The misty being called Zephyra drifted forward. Her voice echoed inside Jake's head without using his ears. Your thoughts are loud, human captain. You wonder if you are dreaming. You fear for your crew. You think of a woman named Sarah back on Earth. Jake's blood ran cold. No one should know about Sarah, his wife who had died in a transport accident 5 years ago. Only he carried those memories. Valdris, the silver humanoid, gestured with one fluid hand. Metal flowed from the station's walls and formed into a perfect replica of the Liberty. Every detail was exact down to the scratches on the hull. Then, he crushed the model to dust without effort. Your ship's design is simple but functional, Valdris said. We could improve it greatly if you prove worthy of our gifts. Flux, the shapeshifter, became an exact copy of Jake. The duplicate looked identical in every way from clothing to facial expressions. When Flux spoke, it was in Jake's own voice. This form serves no purpose, Flux said before flowing into the shape of Lisa, then Amanda, then Ryan. Your species has so little variety. Gorok, the giant, simply stood silent. His presence filled the space like a mountain. When he finally moved, each step made the entire docking bay shake. He picked up a piece of metal debris and squeezed it until it became liquid between his fingers. The humans in robes stepped forward. Their leader was a woman Jake recognized from the Horizon's crew files. Captain Helen Carter had been one of humanity's best explorers before her ship disappeared. Captain Morrison, Helen said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm so glad you found us. The Council has blessed us beyond measure. They have shown us the truth about our place in the universe. Jake studied Helen's face. She looked healthy, but something was wrong with her expressions. She spoke like someone repeating lines from a script. "Helen, what happened to the horizon?" Jake asked. "Earth has been searching for you for 3 years." "The horizon brought us to paradise," Helen replied. "The Council saved us from our ignorance. They showed us that humans are meant to serve higher beings. We are children learning from wise parents." Lisa stepped closer to Jake. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. Whatever they did to the colonists, it changed. Something in their brain chemistry." Zephyra laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Your tactical officer has keen senses. Yes, we have elevated your people. We removed their confusion and gave them clarity. They understand their purpose. Now," Korvax raised one crystal arm. Energy flowed around him like captured lightning. "Observe the power of the divine." A section of the docking bay's wall simply ceased to exist. The atoms that made up the metal dispersed into empty space. There was no explosion, no heat, no sound. The matter was just gone. "We can unmake anything," Korvax said. "Planets, stars, entire solar systems. We have done so many times when lesser species proved too stubborn to accept guidance." Valdris gestured again, and new wall material flowed into place. The section looked exactly as it had before, as if nothing had happened. "We can also create," Valdris explained. "We have built worlds for species that pleased us. We have given technology to civilizations that showed proper respect." Gorok finally spoke, his voice like an avalanche. "We have destroyed armies with our bare hands. We have lived since your son was young. We are eternal." Jake felt fear trying to crawl up his spine, but he pushed it down. "You're powerful, but that doesn't make you gods. Gods wouldn't need to force worship." The temperature in the docking bay dropped. All 5 council members focused their attention on Jake. He felt their alien gazes like physical weight pressing against him. "Interesting," Flux said while wearing Jake's face. "This one shows no proper fear. Perhaps his species requires demonstration." Helen Carter and the other converted humans stepped between Jake and the council. "Please, Captain Morrison, don't anger them. They are merciful to those who accept their wisdom." "What wisdom is that, Helen?" Jake asked. "To bow down to anyone. Stronger than you?" "To know your place in the natural order," Helen replied. "Humans are young and weak. The council is ancient and powerful. They have earned the right to rule." Amanda's voice crackled through Jake's communicator. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildup throughout the station. Whatever they're planning to do, it's big." Zephyra smiled, an expression that looked wrong on her misty features. "Your xenobiologist is correct. We are preparing to show you the fate of species that refuse our guidance." The docking bay's walls became transparent. Outside, Jake could see space filled with the wreckage of ships. Thousands of vessels from dozens of different species floated in a massive debris field around the station. "Each ship represents a civilization that chose poorly," Korvax explained. "Some fought us directly. Others tried to hide. A few attempted to flee the galaxy. All met the same end." Valdris gestured, and several pieces of wreckage moved closer to the station. Jake could see that some of the ships were enormous, larger than Earth's biggest space stations. Others were so advanced they seemed to bend space around them. All were now just twisted metal and broken dreams. These species had technology you cannot imagine, Valdris said. They commanded energies that could reshape matter. They had weapons that could destroy stars. They believed their power made them our equals. Gorok pointed to a particularly large piece of wreckage. That was the flagship of the Zephonian Empire. They ruled 1,000 worlds. Their fleet had 10 million ships. We destroyed them all in a single day. Jake forced himself to remain calm, even as the scope of the Council's power became clear. What do you want from humanity? The same thing. We want from all species, Zephyra replied. Acknowledgement of our divinity, worship, service. Your species will join our empire and serve faithfully for as long as you exist. And if we refuse, Korvax's light pulsed brighter. Then you will join the debris field. Every human world will burn. Your species will become a footnote in galactic history. Helen Carter touched Jake's arm. Please, Captain, I've seen what they can do. Humanity cannot fight them. Our only choice is to serve willingly and hope for their mercy. Lisa stepped forward. Captain, I need to report something. Long-range sensors show a massive fleet forming near the galactic core. Thousands of ships, all Council design. They're preparing for something big. Flux shifted into the shape of a human child, innocent and smiling. We are preparing to visit your home world. Earth will be such a lovely addition to our empire. Billions of new worshippers to guide and protect. The full threat became clear to Jake. The Council wasn't just demanding humanity's surrender. They were planning to invade Earth itself. Every human being would face the same choice: worship or die. We require your answer, Korvax said. Will humanity kneel before the Celestial Council, or will you choose extinction? Jake looked at Lisa, then at the converted colonists, then at the massive alien beings who claimed to be gods. His mind raced through possibilities, but every option seemed hopeless. Humanity's entire military couldn't defeat the power he had witnessed in the last few minutes. I need time to consider, Jake said finally. This decision affects my entire species. I can't make it alone. Zephyra tilted her misty head. Very well, you have 12 of your hours to decide. Use that time to speak with your fellow humans. Here, learn from their wisdom. The Council members began to leave the docking bay. As they walked away, their power seemed to make the very air shimmer around them. Choose wisely, Captain Morrison, Korvax called back. The next time we meet, you will either kneel as our servant or die as our enemy. Jake and Lisa were left, alone with the converted colonists. Helen Carter smiled at them with that same empty expression. Come, Helen said. Let me show you the paradise the Council has created for us. Perhaps then you'll understand why resistance is not just futile, but foolish. As they walked deeper into the alien station, Jake activated his communicator on a private channel to Ryan and Amanda. Start scanning everything, he whispered. We need to find a weakness. Humanity's survival may depend on it. The Andara galaxy stretched across space like a jewel of stars and worlds. For 10,000 years, 5 alien races had ruled this galaxy with power that seemed godlike. They called themselves the Celestial Council and believed they were true, gods sent to rule over lesser beings. The Vorthak were tall creatures made of living crystal. They could turn matter into pure energy with just a thought. Their bodies glowed with inner light, and when they became angry, lightning danced around their forms. The Vorthak lived in cities of crystal that floated in space without any visible support. The Etherians looked like beings made of mist and starlight. They could speak to each other across the galaxy without any machines. They could read minds and plant thoughts in the heads of other creatures. The Etherians never touched the ground but floated above it, as if gravity meant nothing to them. The Nexari appeared as metallic humanoids with skin that looked like liquid silver. They could create any machine or building just by thinking about it. Raw metal would flow toward them and form into whatever they needed. Their cities grew and repaired themselves without any workers. The Morphic Collective had no fixed shape at all. They could become any creature they had ever seen. One moment they might look like a towering warrior and the next like a small child. They flowed like water, but could become as hard as steel when they chose. The Titanborn were giants with skin like stone and muscles that could crush mountains. They stood 3 times taller than a human and lived for thousands of years. Their bones were harder than any metal, and their strength had no known limits. Together, these 5 races had conquered hundreds of worlds. The creatures on those worlds worshipped the Council as gods because their power seemed beyond understanding. Temples dedicated to the Council covered entire planets. Billions of beings prayed to them every day. The Council members truly believed they were divine. They had ruled for so long and defeated every challenge so easily that they could not imagine anyone being their equal. They saw other life forms as children who needed guidance from their betters. On their great space stations, the Council made decisions that affected entire star systems. They decided which worlds would live in peace and which would be destroyed. They chose which species would advance and which would remain primitive. Their word was law across the galaxy. The Council had grown comfortable in their power. They had not faced a real challenge in thousands of years. Any species that tried to resist was quickly crushed. Most civilizations surrendered as soon as they saw what the Council could do. Far from the Andara galaxy, in a small spiral arm of the Milky Way, humanity had just begun to explore space beyond their own solar system. Earth had launched its first colony ships only decades ago. Human technology was basic compared to most spacefaring races. Their ships were slow and their weapons were simple. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the USS Liberty, an exploration vessel sent to map new star systems. Jake was a calm man with gray hair who had spent 20 years in space. He believed in doing what was right even when it was dangerous. His crew trusted him completely. Lisa Grant served as the Liberty's tactical officer. She was young, but brilliant at understanding how weapons and defenses worked. Lisa could see patterns that others missed. She had grown up on a military base and knew how to think like a soldier. Ryan Cooper was the ship's chief engineer. He could fix anything that broke and improve things that already worked well. Ryan loved to take machines apart to see how they functioned. He often found ways to make human technology work better than it was designed to. Dr. Amanda Ross was the ship's xenobiologist. She studied alien life forms and tried to understand how different species lived and thought. Amanda was curious about everything and never stopped asking questions. She believed that all life had value. The Liberty was on a routine mapping mission when its computers picked up a strange signal. The signal came from deep space in a direction where no human ships should be. Jake studied the readings with his crew. "This signal is definitely human," Ryan said as he worked at his console. "But it's using old codes from 3 years ago." Lisa looked at her tactical display. "The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's where the colony ship Horizon was heading when it disappeared." Amanda examined the biological data in the signal. "There are human life signs attached to this transmission. Hundreds of them." Jake made his decision quickly. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system. Maximum speed." The Liberty jumped through hyperspace toward the signal. When they dropped back into normal space, the crew stared in amazement at what they found. A massive space station orbited between two bright stars. The station was clearly alien in design, but was broadcasting human identification codes. The station was enormous. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Strange towers and domes covered its surface. Lights moved across it in patterns that hurt to look at. The entire structure seemed to pulse with life. "I've never seen anything like this," Amanda whispered as she studied the station through the ship's sensors. Lisa checked her weapons. "The station is scanning us with technology I don't recognize. Our shields won't stop whatever they're using." Ryan worked frantically at his controls. "Captain, something is grabbing our ship. It's some kind of tractor beam, but it's far more powerful than anything humans have built." Jake tried to change course, but the Liberty would not respond. "All stop. Do not resist. We don't want to seem hostile." The massive station pulled the Liberty toward itself like a giant hand, grabbing a toy. A section of the station opened up to reveal a docking bay large enough to hold dozens of ships. The Liberty was guided inside and held in place by beams of light. As the docking bay closed behind them, Jake looked at his crew. "Remember, we're explorers, not conquerors. Stay calm and follow my lead." The air in the docking bay changed to match Earth's atmosphere. A ramp extended from the station to the Liberty's airlock. Jake could see figures moving in the shadows beyond the ramp. "Captain," Amanda said quietly, "I'm reading life forms unlike anything in our databases. But I'm also detecting humans. They're alive and moving freely." Jake straightened his uniform and checked his sidearm. "Lisa, you're with me. Ryan and Amanda monitor everything from here. If we don't return in 6 hours, send a message to Earth and get out of here." Jake and Lisa walked down the ramp into the station. The floor beneath their feet was made of a material that seemed to shift colors as they moved. The walls curved in impossible ways that made their eyes water. Then they saw them. 5 beings stood waiting in the docking bay. Each one was more incredible than anything human science had imagined. The crystal creature blazed with inner fire. The misty being floated without touching the ground. The silver humanoid flowed like liquid metal. The shapeshifter took different forms every few seconds. The giant could have crushed them both with one hand. Behind these beings stood humans in strange robes. Jake recognized some faces from the missing colony ship's crew records, but their eyes held a devotion that made him uncomfortable. The crystal being spoke, and somehow Jake understood every word even though it used no language he knew. "Welcome, small ones, to the realm of the Celestial Council. We are the gods of this galaxy. You will kneel before us and accept our divine guidance." Jake looked at Lisa and saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. Neither of them knelt. That was when everything changed.